What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sundays Coming podcast. I'm here with Kaleb.
What up, man?
And I'm also here with Sam.
How are you?
Very good to have you here. And what we do here in these conversations is talk to interesting people about stuff that's going on in church ministry spaces, in spaces adjacent to church ministry, because a lot of the people that find themselves in a church context, in a ministry context, the reality that they face is Sundays are always coming. And so you are having to create culture, create the team, create the sustainability of your ministry with this never-ending cycle and never-ending deadline, and that can be a lot. And so the conversations that we have are all structured around learning from people that are living in that space and hearing about, what are the things that they found to be helpful, what are the things that we can learn, broad range of different guests and conversations that can bring unique perspectives to our audience. So, Sam, we're excited to hear from you today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Stoked to be here.
Dude. I'm glad that, you're here. We've known each other for 3 years, probably going on 3 years.
Going on 3.
I was a part of City First, originally Rockford First, back in 2010, I think it was. And randomly, my family had just moved to Rockford, and we were literally driving by the corner of these two massive churches on,
You're like, what am I in, Texas?
I literally, it kind of feels a little bit like Dallas.
It's a Texas
It definitely is. And literally, I was in college, randomly picked up the phone. Lisa answered.
So cool.
And I was like, hey, do you guys ever need front of house guys? And she's like, can you come in tomorrow? And I'm like, awesome.
I just love that she knew that they needed that.
Well, what's crazy. So she's the senior executive pastor now, and was a producer. And so like she was there. She was at front of house with us. And so it was so cool to see how things have changed. And so anyway, so that was my kind of original introduction to it. Went through college and went on to work at a couple different churches, and randomly got a call from our mutual friend Brenton Miles, who was a worship pastor at the time at Rockford First, and was like, "Hey, we're doing a record. I had never met you. I'd heard of you, and heard lots of good things, and like seeing the transition that I think the church had made. Really, 2010 to 2020 is a very different church.
Big journey.
Just enormous. And
Big journey.
When did you actually come on staff?
Yeah, so I joined the staff of City First in 2017, and at the time that was as part of our Florida location. We have a location in Cape Coral, Florida.
Yeah,
and I was a part of a church that was adopted into City First. So was helping in the interim of that season merge the two cultures from 1,200 miles away. It's a super fun process. Learned a lot. And during that time, Rockford, our Spring Creek location, as we call it, was also in an interim season as far as the worship pastor position was concerned. They were kind of taking some time to evaluate and determine what they wanted in that role. So as I joined the team, with a musical background, I started to identify, hey, what if we tried this? Or what if we, experimented with that and just tried to offer support from afar? And so that led to me moving to Rockford in 2019. That's and taking on the role of worship pastor for City First Church.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. I didn't realize it's not that long ago, but it feels like.
Yeah, this past August was 4 years.
That's crazy.
Moved on August 15th, which in Rockford is a big deal because it's 815 is our area code. So I didn't realize it, but it was like a Rockford holiday that we got off the plane and rolled into town. So
Rockford is looking for things to celebrate.
Hey man, Rockford has done.
They're owning it. They're doing great.
It is a very different city.
Yes.
Than what it was when my parents moved there. And I was going to college because I was like, oh man, this is a little bit sketch in some places. And there still is spots, but that's everywhere you go.
It's really turning a corner. And there's a lot of buzz in the city, and there's a lot of, I think, healthy ownership of people who want to see it, kind of revitalized. And our church is obviously, keen on that. So.
So how, because I don't even know the story, were you at Cape Coral before City First kind of absorbed?
Yeah, so
the
I was
church?
the associate pastor of a church in Cape Coral. That's now our City First location. And we were going through a leadership transition.
Okay.
And that opened up the conversation with City First. Our pastor that resigned was highly connected with Rockford. And what was so cool is behind the scenes, City First had started a campaign called Hope for All.
Okay.
And so their church had been fundraising, believing that locations was a part of their future. They didn't know when, they didn't know where. And they were also in the process of a name change because they wanted that heart to fit future locations, and being called Rockford First isn't necessarily the way to approach that. So they became City First Church, and in that year added 2 more locations and a third actually. So all of our locations, we do God Behind Bars. We have 2 God Behind Bars locations. We're in a Dixon Correctional Facility and then Hardy Correctional Facility, which is in Central Florida.
Yep.
Super cool. And then we have Cape Coral, our Rockford location. We call that Spring Creek. It's because we have a heart to see even more locations in our city specifically. So we chose Spring Creek there. And then we're in the process of launching in Southern Wisconsin as well.
Yeah.
So I was the associate pastor of that church, and we started the conversation with Rockford, which doesn't seem like an equation you'd pursue.
Right. Nope.
Like, you guys are in Cape Coral, Florida. So I just have such high respect for our senior pastors, Jer and Jen. They brought in kind of a third-party consultant who had helped other churches merge in existing existing congregations.
Yeah.
Because that's a unique thing.
Yeah.
And really, what was so cool about that process is it went really slow. Like, it was a patient pace.
Yeah.
And it was like, are we aligned with our DNA? Just like square one. Are we aligned with our method? Are we aligned with our hearts? Are we aligned with our vision and the way that we want to see ministry done? And really, that consultant, he's a great guy. He's like, hey, we're just looking for green lights. And if at any point we even feel a yellow light, let's all just be honest about, what we're seeing, and believe that God has something else in store, and he's going to take care of the process. And so we had been interviewing traditional senior pastor candidates. Like, it wasn't the only lane we were walking down. Yeah. And it was just really cool to see a selection committee, which was like super diverse, like a crazy mixture of age and ethnicity, like all of the different things as part of our church go, hey, do we feel like the Lord's in this?
Yeah.
And more, we just felt those green lights. And so those churches merged, and now we have City First Cape Coral, and it's doing great.
That's so cool, man.
Yeah.
It's I've never been on the other side of like the church that's being absorbed. I've been on the other side of it. Did that? How did the staff do with that? Because like that's huge, especially, I mean, the distance alone. It's not like, oh, hey, there's another church in Fort Myers or something that we're going to merge with. Makes sense,
Yeah. We were having those conversations.
That's it's a very different location.
Yeah. So it was unique, because church staffs are made up of people. So I think there was some justified like skepticism at first.
Of course.
I think part of that's healthy, like, very much so. And I think the more and more that we got closer to leadership, all of that skepticism or all of those concerns really started to not necessarily fade away, but like started to get resolved, of, oh, okay, wow. Like, this isn't a takeover.
Yes.
Like, this is truly from a missional heart.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like, as I pray about this, like, God, align my heart with your heart, and we really tried to make sure that was the center of the process. And as leadership there was doing that, and as an existing church staff was doing that, that's really where we felt all of those things kind of go to ease. And that's just, props to Jer and Jen.
Yeah.
Just genuinely hearing from the Lord. And I was a part of that selection committee. So I sat in all those meetings. I wasn't just like a bystander giving updates. So I can just say, like, there were just like some really like Holy Spirit moments. And as the rooms got larger and larger, more and more people involved in what that process looked like, seeing the body of Christ feel affirmation towards that choice was just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Because it definitely wasn't something that like anyone would just out of the blue decide to do.
Yeah.
Correct.
And even Pastor Jer and Jen, it was so cool. Like during the transition, they were actually already in the Cape Coral area for another event.
Yeah.
That they had purchased tickets for like a year earlier.
Oh, that's crazy.
And it was right during the time where it's like, hey, if we're going to have this conversation, we're actually going to be in town. Like there's just like small nods like that throughout the whole thing. I could talk a lot more about it, but genuinely just making it a thing of prayer. And there's a Maxwell principle. It's like when your goal is to serve the team, adapting to meet that goal shouldn't be difficult. And our staff just wants to reach people.
Yeah.
And the team that we had in Cape Coral, that was their heart then too. And so you're like, hey, this is going to be some adaptation. And a few people decided to leave, and that was okay.
Sure.
A lot of us stayed, and it was beautiful. And many of us are still on the team.
Yeah.
Or spent, a really healthy chunk of time on the team and then moved on for other reasons.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of a cool story that God knit together. But it was definitely unique. If anyone's going through a funky spot like that, DM me and I'd love to encourage you.
I was going to ask, like from a very practical standpoint, you're talking about a specific set of circumstances that required very thoughtful and strategic kind of change management, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone is in a situation where they're combining two different churches, but a lot of people are having to navigate significant change and figure out how to manage and steward that change effectively. So I think a lot of the sort of perspectives and practices that probably made that successful and feel like it was healthy and communicated well and the church congregations were bought in are probably principles that you could apply to lots of other change management scenarios that you might be working through in a ministry. So I'd be curious if you were to pull out like a few high level things, like just from a practical standpoint, like here are things that we considered that we did that worked really well, and maybe some things that like, hey, this didn't go as well, and here's how we maybe would course correct that.
Yeah, I don't know where the quote came from, but it's like clarity is kind.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think one of the things that was done so well from the leadership at City First was just a lot of clarity and a lot of communication, down to like one of the best things that I received like in the first part of that merger, if you will, was a vocabulary document. And that's a document that we have on our staff. And it's, hey, we say this, we try to avoid saying this, and here's why.
That's awesome.
That could come down and someone could receive a document like that and be like, there's the talking points. Great.
Yeah.
But it was presented with such care, so much clarity, where I'm going, oh, okay, like literally down to some of the basic things, like when we're receiving an offering, here's how we go through those steps.
Yeah.
We say follower of Jesus instead of XYZ, like just some of the house vocabulary, because vocabulary builds culture in such a huge way. So, I'd say all that to say, as you're navigating change, if you're the one, on the other side of change, ask for that clarity. Or if you're the one implementing the change, provide that clarity. And then I think part of it too was just a learned mindset that you find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like in any scenario, you can find what you're looking for. So if someone's trying to find negativity, that's the easiest and, in my opinion, sometimes the laziest thing to find.
Yeah.
But when you're looking for the good in a situation, not ignoring, the practicals and like the real things of like, hey, we are going to rebrand this building. We are going to paint walls. We are going to change out signs. Like all those things took work, but when you find yourself like leaning towards that way, I just always had to pause and like take inventory and just go, you want to know what? Amongst change, especially in ministry, I think sometimes the enemy will try to get in and stir things up.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, hey, you want to know what? There's going to be things that happen during this transition that are going to be difficult, but I want to navigate it in a way that I'm going to look back on and be proud of. So even if that would be my pastor came to me today and said, hey, here's a new service order, it would be like, okay, I can find what I'm looking for as he presents that information. That's unlikely. But so I think one of the big things is just like think about what you're thinking about if you're navigating change right now, because it really is easy to find the negative.
Yeah.
But if you know that you're called to that place and you know that the mission of your house and like your church and like building the kingdom of God is the thing that you're committed to, then keep that the main thing. I said it earlier, adapting to serve the team shouldn't be difficult if that's truly your goal.
Yeah.
And so it required adaptability, but I just learned like, hey, that's going to help me grow as a leader. That's going to help me grow as a coworker. It's going to help me understand how can I be a safe place for you if you're having a difficult time with that transition, while also not, brewing and living in that negativity.
Yeah.
So I think adaptability as a team member is one of the biggest strengths that you can bring, whether you're the guy in charge or whether you're, like at whatever stage in an organization, whatever tier in an organization. Be adaptable and find the good. We say this a lot at City First because, Kaleb, you mentioned at the start just how big of a transition since our senior pastors have taken over. We just celebrated 17 years of them as senior pastors. Just awesome. And we don't say this in like a emotionalistic way, but we just go, hey, we have no time for negativity. That doesn't mean we're not honest. That doesn't mean we don't review. I mean, we have Slack channels where we review everything.
Yeah.
Like we're very serious about review, but we're also just serious about keeping the main thing. And so let's stay on mission. Let's stay focused on that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we don't have bad days. It doesn't mean I don't feel negative ever.
Sure.
But choosing to dwell there, I think, is where a lot of cultures start to find identity. And that's something that none of us have time for. Like, we're building the kingdom of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think Jer and Jen and our whole exec team did a great job in that transition of keeping the mission and the vision out front. And then we made a lot of changes and we had a lot of honest conversations. But that was one of the biggest things that made it possible to merge two congregations. And now that church is doing great, and thriving. So
yeah, I didn't realize that about the language book of like, I think that's like huge. I mean, my gosh, like the amount of times that we went into some sort of transition or absorbing a campus and like none of that was provided. And you just go, it's really hard to build culture when the language isn't the same, or as a church grows or as they add more campuses or whatever, like keeping culture. It's no different than in an organization when you hire somebody, like every person that comes on staff changes the culture in some way. And to keep that in that sandbox of like, this is the culture that we want is huge. Cause that's not realizing that. And now, me and my family being a part of City First, like I see that. I see the language that's all very similar, but I didn't realize that it was as written down.
They had just gone through a name change from Rockford First to City First. Yeah. And I was just blown away. Even inside of the congregation, people were like, oh yeah, City First. They did such a great job of going, this is our church name.
Yep.
And vocabulary does build culture in such huge ways.
Yeah.
And so, again, you find what you're looking for. I think some people hear about a document like that and can think,
of course,
whatever they want to think. But it is truly leadership showing, care by going, hey, we're going to be crystal clear about what the expectation is. Yeah. And this is because here's the culture we want to build.
Yeah.
So, some really smart strategic things that really in that transition season, like impressed me. But now I'm seeing really came from like great intentions and, you got to maintain culture. It's either created or allowed. And so you have to continually create it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys feel like, so like Janesville, Southern Wisconsin campus, that's like it was I think it was pre-Christmas. It was like, oh, hey, by the way, this is a thing. I just
Beautiful.
remember it was so cool. I grew up 3-5, blocks from that church, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you guys are doing anything different in the launch of this campus compared to 5 years ago?
Because is it a church merger as well, or is it just a location?
So it'll be a City First Church location, but it was an adoption of somewhat of a remnant of a remaining congregation that was there. Very, very few people.
Yeah.
But there was a facility and a few people that still called it home. And so we really tried to show as much care as we could as we welcomed those people into that process of, hey, believe this is going to be a City First Church location. And we're in the process of growing a launch team and a core team, launching later this year in the fall. And I think you definitely learn a lot about really just on the other side of these situations are people, and we try to do our best. I mean, I was the interim location pastor in Cape Coral through that process.
Yeah.
We called them pie meetings, just, hey, want to let you know about something that's going on.
Yeah.
Would love for you to pray and ask God if you're supposed to be a part of this.
Yeah.
And so many people did, So really, we just tried to present that same heart and that same mission as we went through that process in Janesville. That was truly one of those situations where you go, when it isn't God's timing, you can't force it. And when it is God's timing, you can't stop it.
Yeah, man.
And so this congregation, became a part of City First. And it just all starts with relationship. So it wasn't, hey, we're going to come in and bring a band in and do a service. It was none of that. It's really just been a life group. And it's been so cool to see people catch on to the heart and mission. At Easter alone, there was recorded salvations. Already this year, we've baptized almost 9 people at that
awesome
location that's not even launched.
That's so cool, man.
We just try to make it relational. That's what people are hungry for.
Yeah.
Just genuine relationships. You can watch great church services anywhere that you want. You can go attend like well-produced, amazing, production and beautiful music and great messages preached. But at the core of all of it, we're all wired for relationship. So in the merger of the people that were there and even the people that are joining the core team, it's all just relational strategy. So we do gatherings every Sunday for that. We do a once a month experience where we do bring in a full band, a full team.
That's cool.
And that's to kind of foreshadow, hey, here's what's coming as we build that out. And then we have core team meetings on Wednesday nights. That's just, hey, here's the heartbeat of this house. Here's our heart for this city. And what's so crazy is even before Cape Coral became a location, Jared and Jen would do prayer drives through Janesville.
That's cool.
They just felt they had a heart for that Southern Wisconsin,
That's awesome.
State line tier. So it really was an answer to prayer that was sown like years ago. Years ago.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to be a part of that story, and it's cool to see kind of a church location start to be revitalized and start to see life, back in that house.
Yeah.
Because the situation was either the land was going to be sold, and the people who had, that decision power just didn't feel peace about that.
Yeah.
And they were like, hey, would you guys, consider bringing this into the City First family? And, it's pretty easy to say yes to that because you're going, there's people in the city that need Jesus. And so, it's cool to see that location build and build and build. And I'm really excited. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy attending there. It's a totally different vibe than what you would get at Spring Creek or even at Cape Coral. And I think that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's the beauty in multi-site. And we were talking about this, out there before we started recording, of just like the size of church that you can get, whether you're jumping into a new building that is, hey, we're absorbing this. And the inside of that, Janesville campus, I've only seen pictures, as of recent, but there's big windows and big classic wooden.
It's a 70s steeple style church. But man, it's got some modern amenities now.
Yeah,
and a lot of people enjoy that type of experience.
Yes,
and that's great. I mean, I think it's actually a beautiful option because we've had so many people that have been driving into Rockford. Yeah. Some of them for years and years and years.
That's crazy.
And so they have that heartbeat, they have the culture of City First, and now in their own backyard, they're a part of that core team, inviting people to services. We did a Christmas experience, an Easter experience, and more and more stuff planned. So,
dude, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like we got to back up now because at some point in the story, you moved from Cape Coral to Rockford. And so like digging into that a little bit more. So you're serving as the associate, or you're serving as the location pastor.
Interim location pastor.
And so eventually you kind of shifted, and because you're not the location pastor of the campus you're at now.
No.
So what do you do? How did you get there?
Yeah.
What was the transition like for you to come up to Rockford and take on that role?
Yeah. So my wife and I had been praying about moving out of Florida for a good amount of time. So I grew up in Wisconsin. I moved to Florida and spent 15 years there. And when I moved here in 2019, it was really an answer to prayer that we had kind of been just exploring for a number of years. And during that time of prayer is when all the merger happened with City First. So I was in this spot going, Lord, I'm feeling a disconnect from Florida, which, happens in people's lives from time to time. And I was super nervous to bring my Southern wife up to the Midwest.
Yeah.
Because that's just where my network was, because that's where I grew up. So we had just been praying through that process. And then our senior pastor resigned and the whole merger happened. Yeah. And it was so interesting because my wife and I just felt the Lord say, strap yourselves to the ship. Like when a ship gets rocky, so many people are like, dude, I'm overboard. Like I'm out. I even had like some leaders I trust and respect. They're like, you need to get out of there. Wow. And I'm like, man, I just really haven't felt the Lord say that to me. Like, thank you so much that like you're showing care. Like I know you're saying that from a place of care. Yeah. But we just feel like we're supposed to stay. And that didn't make sense to us because I had interviewed a number of places outside of the state, and none of them had landed, which was okay. So felt like we were supposed to stay, became the interim location pastor, was very clear, about that in the merger of those of just like, hey, I don't necessarily feel the burden of pastoring this location. Yeah. I have a heart for worship. And as the associate pastor before the merger, I was helping oversee staff and run the weekend experience. Okay. So leading worship, designing lights, making sure audio was set, doing graphics, doing web, like
everything.
I was kind of a jack of all trades. Really just to help make things happen. So we found a location pastor. I spent the next year helping him kind of transition into that role. Okay. And we got to the end of all of it, and I still just felt like, man, I feel such a strong connection to Pastors Jer and Jen. Yeah. But I don't know what it was, just that stirring that, people in ministry can equate to that economy. We were just like, but we don't feel like we're supposed to be in Florida. Yeah. There was a couple practical things, like we didn't have any family there. Yeah. We had a great friendship community, so we weren't lacking in that regard. And it was so cool because in that whole process is when they called and said, hey, would you, pray about taking the worship pastor position in Rockford, which was
crazy.
Yeah, it really felt like in that moment and through that time of prayer, it was like, this is why the Lord said, stay. So we moved in the fall, well, I guess late summer of 2019, right before the pandemic.
Yeah, dude.
So we were getting to know our team and getting to kind of know the Rockford area and the flow of everything, and then bam, like the world shut down. Yeah. So we went into the season that everyone else kind of went into of like the pre-film thing, making services happen so we could publish online. And that was actually a really special season for us because for our department, during a time when so many people were isolating, we had people that were still, willing to come out and record services. Yeah. And so we really got to build close friendships with our band, with our worship leaders, with our vocalists, with our production team. And that, I think, helped us establish a foundation within our worship department that maybe would have taken a lot longer.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So even in the middle of what was wild for everybody, it helped propel kind of this core group into a ministry season. Yeah. So we're even grateful for that.
That's interesting. I didn't even realize, all of that. Cause it is like when I first started, coming around, like there was and it still is a very tight knit group of people in the band and the worship team and the people that are serving, even from a volunteer standpoint, every week. I mean, it's a very, very, very tight, knit group of people. And they all like each other, and you guys do a lot more than just Sunday mornings, and there's a lot of time that's spent, together. And that is so important to have that, like, the culture.
A lot of our team, it's like, hey, all right, here's when we have to start practice because we could just hang all night, So we're really, really grateful for everyone that serves on our team, and people are just heart and soul. And we keep a full schedule at City First. It's not just Sundays. We do a first Wednesday service every single month. We take part of the summer off, which is a nice reprieve. Let everyone, have some vacay time and break that rhythm up a little bit. But we also have a heart for conferences at City First. So we host a women's, a men's, and a youth conference every single year.
Yeah.
In addition to those conferences, especially for our women's conference, we do quarterly original nights. The name of the conference is Original Women's Conference. It's an awesome event.
So cool.
So we do original nights, and then lots of other additional things peppered throughout.
Yeah.
But everyone's always down, and everyone just has a heart to serve. And we try to keep our bench growing so that no one's being overused. But sometimes you have the thing of like, I want to serve. Can I get some more requests? You know, like what a beautiful thing to have a team member say back to you.
Oh my gosh.
So
we just came off of Original, and I was there, and it was like it was special, man. Like I got home on that Saturday, and I think it was the last. Worship set in the last session.
Yeah, the last big session.
And it was powerful, man. Like most of the time when I'm there, we are head down, we're doing stuff. There's tons of things happening throughout these sessions, or whatever. And I don't always get the opportunity when I'm behind the console to really like look up and just like look around. And there was so much space that was built into that, time of worship that I really had the opportunity to do that. And I was telling my wife when I got home that night, there's a camera slider right in front of house, and the camera op that was running it, during one of the songs, he's got his arm up and he's, walking, across this track. And I was like, I don't really get emotional, but I got very emotional during that, because I was like, dude, like this is what it's freaking about. Like it was so amazing.
Yeah.
Being in this room of, 1,700 ladies that were all there, and, seeing all of these, women that were, giving their lives to Jesus for the first time, throughout that, I was like, holy crap, like this is amazing.
The room was really ready. It was a really special weekend. And we had never done this before, but after the service on Friday night, so the conference is Friday night and all day Saturday, they offered sign up for water baptism. They're like, hey, at the end of the conference tomorrow, we're going to make it available if you've never been baptized in water, or even if you just gave your life to Jesus tonight, you can get baptized, tomorrow.
Yeah. And
we did a course on Saturday afternoon, like all the things, and 52 ladies got baptized at the end of our conference. Awesome. And the room was just so pumped and charged to like celebrate that, So yeah, it was a really special weekend across the board. Just like working with such a focused team and a diverse team, not everyone lives in the same lane or the same style.
Yeah.
The times of worship were just like charged, So I'm grateful for that our team's ready for that the room was ready for that. Yeah. And we live for those moments, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And I think like, when I first started showing up, even on a Sunday morning, one of the things, this is even, back in 2010, you guys were doing this, but like, before practice, before rehearsal, like there's, 20, 30 of us sitting in a circle on the stage, and we're not only just talking through the run sheet, and that's like the 4 seconds of that, 10-minute time. And we're praying as a group together. We're talking about the things that, we're going to do, and like just really being very expectant for the people that are going to show up, and that like this is not just another random Sunday, and like our expectation shows up in the people that are going to walk through these doors. And there's not a lot of churches that do, at least from what I've seen, that do it to that level of cohesiveness between all these different teams, between worship and production and some people in leadership, and just all going, hey, we're one giant team here. It's not just the band's gonna circle up and pray and talk through their in-ears to everybody, and production is gonna do some huddle somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a team that is very much together, and that creates a huge culture. Not only celebrating amazing wins when there's people who graduate college, but when there's a death in the family or something like that, and also praying, with and for those people during that time, which is pretty sweet.
I just throw props back to my leadership, because that circle up strategy is something that I learned when I joined City First.
Yeah.
I think I came from more of the practical approach. Hey, know your stuff. I trust you're a good person.
Yep.
Let's pray.
Yep.
And it's all pretty brief. And there's there's equations to that are okay.
Yeah.
Or parts of that are okay. But yeah, we just have that that circle up culture. It was there when I joined City First.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually increased and gotten, more intentional since I've been there. But I think it's great just for everyone in the team to hear what the heart of today is. Yes, to take care of the practicals, but then also it's not just a pastor who always prays during that time. We'll, different weeks, hey guys, let me hear you pray today.
Yep.
Praying out loud is something that a lot of people are uncomfortable doing.
Yeah.
Even in our life groups at our church, like that's one of the biggest things that we get as a feedback item, So it's like, well, hey, let's learn how to pray together. Like we're Christ followers, right? And yeah, I think it does help us maintain a couple of those cultural components that we really prioritize.
Yeah.
Hey, being full of faith and expectation for today. We ripped it off of Stephen Brewster, but it's never just another Sunday. And we believe that.
Yeah.
Like we truly believe that, because this Sunday could be the day where a son comes that his mom's been praying for for 5 years. He might be a grown adult. She's been praying for him his whole life. And for whatever reason, he chooses to show up to church that day.
Yeah.
Or someone got diagnosis, that week that is unexpected. Like you just never know what's walking into the room.
Yeah.
And I've been challenging my team with this more and more lately. Like your focus is probably the most valuable resource that you have to control. And so as people presenting a service, creating a space where people can come and experience God's presence, man, let's give all of our focus to that.
Yeah.
I can dial in and give my focus to, 4 hours of gaming with my boys like on a Friday night. And like, I am focused. Let me tell you what, like you got kids clawing at you and you're like, no, not now, So of all the things that we can give our focus to, why not give all of it to, 1, 2, we do 3 services on a Sunday. Not everyone does 3, but whatever your outlet is, I think God deserves that first and foremost. And then as representatives of him, the people walking in the room deserve that.
Yeah.
And we've seen fruit come from that. And we've seen Circle Up actually be one of the things that so many people are impacted by.
Yeah.
I had a friend shadowing this past weekend. He's a worship pastor at a great church up north. And he was like, man, just like so many different moments.
Yes.
And there's weeks where, as a leader, you're going, all right, I need to get my focus in line.
Yeah.
Because it's not just another Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people that wakes up, Sundays like smiling and chipper.
Yeah,
like
5 a.m. comes very early.
Yeah, the call time hits, you know. But learning that, choosing that and like walking in with that purpose every single week, it really, really does make a difference in the team and in the experience.
Yeah.
And just where your mindset's at as you're influencing others for what it means to follow Jesus, whether that's behind a console, a camera, a computer, or, a shorter list behind an instrument or a mic.
Yeah.
We all need to carry that focus, you know?
Yeah. One more thing I was thinking about when you're saying that, I think, and that's basically only the people that are in the room for the experience, basically on the platform, that are in that Circle Up. But then like you think about the other Circle Up that happens where, hey, we're going to sing a song together. As this is basically everybody that's involved in weekend, and serving in any capacity, shows up. Our senior pastors show up to that. Whoever's communicating that day is also there. And like that speaks, dude, it speaks so much volume, because like the amount of times that I have been in a space where like I don't see the senior pastor until he's on stage, and I don't see him unless he's on stage, and it's not a great experience, but like that's context that like I came from in so many different environments, and you're like, whoa, when you have that and you have a senior pastor or communicator or some sort of leader up there who's rallying everybody who's serving in every single area, it's like looking back, it's like, holy crap, this is pretty cool.
Yeah. So for the listener, we do band practice, and then we do a full Circle Up with all productions, and then we do a full service run through. We run every element of the experience, start to finish, besides the preach. But we'll show all the notes. We'll play every video at length. Like, we go through everything. And then once that's done, hopefully around 7:40, 7:45, everyone grabs a quick bite. And then at 8 a.m. in one of our youth spaces, we do a full team circle up. So if you're in worship for youth that day, or productions in youth, or in the main odd, we all come together. Our senior pastor or someone from our executive team or the communicator that day will charge the room, share a bit of the heart of what today is all about. And then we take a moment and we worship together. I just hook up an acoustic guitar. We have a keys player do it. Use a mic so I don't have to shout to that many people. Haven't even done one service yet. And it's cool because there's been some weeks where like you don't want the moment to go on.
Oh yeah.
And I just think it's so important to prioritize that because as that room goes, so the day goes. And we want our hearts to just be centered and focused. And I think it's a beautiful cultural thing, and I'm really, really thankful that it's a priority for our house. So
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. Culture's been sort of like a theme that has kind of pervaded the conversation from, talking about the different locations and the team and Sunday mornings and things like that. Like, as you're looking at the next season for you and where you're kind of sensing, a direction for the team, like what's next on the horizon for what you're investing in, both at your Rockford location, but as more of these other locations come online, what do you see as sort of the next cultural horizon or thing that you're pursuing as you think ahead?
Yeah, I think, there's always a lot of plates that you're trying to keep spinning and, areas that you're trying to move forward. So there's always a list of practicals, audio quality, band quality, vocal quality, preparation quality, all of those things are always there. But if I had to put a banner culturally on like the big ticket thing that I think I'm sensing, at least in my team right now, this is not a cliche. Like I think everyone's really craving some spiritual depth. You get that on Sundays. You get that at our first Wednesdays.
Yeah.
But as a Christ follower, as an individual, my wife and I were just having this conversation actually on how we can like strategically provide those opportunities for our team.
Yeah.
Because just playing in the band and just leading worship, it's not enough,
Yeah.
So over the summer, we're really pouring some pretty serious intention into how we can do that with our teams. And because of the size of our team, we can't all do that together at once in the same space. Sure. So how do we do that as pockets of the community? So really basic things like, hey, let's all get on a YouVersion reading plan together.
Yeah.
And I know you read it. If you lead a comment, even if it's just a thumbs up emoji or whatever it is. I'm conversational. I could talk about the Word of God like too much. I don't know if that's possible, but more than others would want to listen. And so so it's like, just throw the emoji in there. And we'll do that different ways. Sometimes we'll do that with just a group of guys, just a group of girls, or we'll do a season where it's like, hey, let's all be on this plan together.
Yeah.
And just doing that brings so much ease to the conversations when you are together at a Thursday night practice or you're in between services on a Sunday morning, whatever it is. So those are some areas where we're going to do that. And the thing with our team is everyone's going to respond to different things. So some people will be all in on the reading plan.
Yeah.
Some people really want to read a book together. I like to listen to the audiobook with the book in front of me so I can highlight and kind of cheat. Because if it's just the book, I don't get through it.
Yeah.
And the other thing too that I think creates the space for those spiritual conversations is just moments of community. So we've got some cookouts on the calendar for this summer. We are kind of scaling back. We're not in a writing season. We're just in the process of mixing some tracks right now. So a little bit of work in my office will happen towards that. But as we go into the summer, we really want to prioritize that because I think everyone's hungry for the set list to have as much meaning as possible.
Yeah.
When you don't have that a day in and day out connection, it can just feel like accepting a PCO invite and playing some chords, And I never want a worship set to feel that way. I truly want it to be the thing that I'm craving. And I want it to be coming from the overflow. Obviously, first and foremost, like as a worship pastor, like that's really important that I do that. But I want a team that's hungry too. And I'm thankful for our team because they are genuinely Christ followers. When I was in ministry training, my college years, close friend of mine, her name's Jessica Maupin. She's a worship pastor in Wisconsin, actually. Okay. She was like, our heart is to be passionate followers of Jesus who happen to be musical. And
That's cool.
I think in the circles we roll in, it's really easy to be super passionate about your plug-in chain and really passionate about hand-wired or soldered, you know, patch cables or this pickup or that pickup or that size drum or, you know, this size drum. 8-inch snares are still very much alive. Thank you. You're welcome.
Always will be.
But, you know, and I can trip out and geek out on those things. When I'm with like that circle of friends, my wife is like, how do you still have something to talk about?
There's always something, man.
Well, there's always something to talk about.
Yep.
I mean, you know, we're kind of going down that path now. So, all that to say, I want that overflow to come from us being Christ followers.
Yeah.
And I really think that for a team like us at City First, it's essential that is first and foremost, and then music is secondary.
Yeah.
Because I love good tone, and we're always going to chase it down. I love smooth transitions. We're always going to practice them. But if we're putting our stock in that being the thing, man, we're really, really missing it.
Yeah.
You know, Pastor Jer has said this a number of times, but in staff circles, he's like, man, God forbid people show up to one of our experiences and just see a band or just see a communicator.
Yeah.
I think people are craving something authentic, and people are going to find that through a relationship with Jesus. And I think we're even, you know, rediscovering what a set list looks like on a Sunday. Just because, you know, you have whatever your time slot is, big debate about how much time, you know, worship should have. Well, whatever your time slot is, why can't we have a packed, like, you know, 16 minutes full of purpose, full of intentionality? Well, how do you get them there? You know, our church needs 25, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it comes to mindset. I've seen great leaders walk in the room and captivate their attention in a matter of minutes.
Yes.
So I want to be as intentional as I can with my arrangements, with my set. I don't want to manufacture something that's not there yet, or, you know, things need to marinate. Like, you know, I'm all for both camps.
Yeah.
But how do I bring as much purpose and intentionality to those moments? And I think that's going to come from me, first and foremost, being a Christ follower, our team being unified in that pursuit of Jesus and what it means to follow him. And then as we're in the musical expression of that, great. It'll come naturally. You know, that expression should come out if we're serving food at one of our food distributions as a church, in painting a wall, or in a music set, you know? And I mean that. Like, it can sound like a cliche, but I'm like, that's what I'm supposed to do with my life.
Yeah, that's
like,
cool,
it's
man.
not just, write songs or, you know, put on big conferences. Like, nope, like, it's got to come from me following Jesus. And so that is the banner, long answer, as you're learning here. That's the banner for this summer. And I really think the next season, because even as we begin to write more, man, people just want something authentic. People want something real. I think people showing up, you know, to church on Sunday, like, they want to be okay with a transition that dips too soon, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Like I can find polished anywhere. But I think when everything's perfect, it's actually not like what people want.
Yeah. It doesn't come across as if this is actually authentic, you know, in some ways. And I think you guys are so good at just like the intentionality even of those set lists, even like as much as you can, trying to hear from whoever's, you know, teaching that weekend and just going, hey, give me a ballpark sandbox of kind of where you're going or where you hope the plane is going to land. And whether it lands there or not, you know, whether that's, hey, we're going to do a response at the end and we don't know what song it's going to be until maybe right before you walk up, and it might change again right before you walk up. But like the ability to flow in that. And like, I think it speaks to like your team and the band that, you know, you lead, that they follow and are able to go, hey, we're so prepared enough that we don't have to think about, oh my gosh, we're going to change a key, or this person's going to lead, or we're going to do that song. We didn't rehearse it, you know? And I just can think about all those.
Well, it goes all the way back to what we were saying at the very beginning of the conversation when you were describing how to walk through like a healthy change process, and you talked about adaptability, right? Because the goal is not, a perfect roadmap that I know every step and I end here. It's how am I sensitive and responsive and able to kind of flow as things become clear and needs change as we're on that journey, figuring it out. And it's the same thing when you're approaching that worship gathering, different moments that might come up. The goal was not to have a perfect PCO set that we followed exactly right and then we got to the end. The goal is to be responsive and sensitive and thoughtful, and that way when those changes happen, it's not perceived by the team as a stress. It's like that's what we're here to do, is to flow and adapt and change, and it's not a negative, it's a positive.
We use the word hybrid. We're always going to be a hybrid of like, we make our plans, but the Lord determines our steps. And I think there's some cultures that throw that phrase out and they have zero intention on changing anything. And then there's other cultures that throw that out and they have no plan and they're just hoping it kind of lands, you know? Yes. We have lots of plans, but I think it's that heavy preparation and it's those disciplines of we play by numbers, you know? If your team doesn't play numbers and you guys want high flexibility.
Now we're getting into the weeds for the worship people.
Play numbers.
Let's play by numbers.
But it comes to caring about that person enough when they join the team to take them on the journey so that by the time they're in an environment that would demand that from them, they've been conditioned.
Oh, yeah.
You know, not when someone's too early or whatever. But if we say we're Spirit-led and we truly want to be, the Holy Spirit loves order and structure.
Yeah.
Different podcast, where we can discuss all of that. But it doesn't mean you don't have a plan, but it just means like you hold it with an open hand and you're ready to follow. Like if the communicator feels something different or, the moment goes differently than planned, that's okay. It's not about our plans, you know? And then, we'll review it and we'll go, hey, how did that feel to everybody? And how do we do it again well next time, you know?
Yeah. It's funny. Rob and I were joking a couple weeks ago, and I think it was maybe post-original, and he was like, man, Sam really trusts us a lot to play these songs that we haven't played in a very long time. And he's just going, what did he just call? And he's like, I hope I remember it. And then goes, oh, I remembered it. That's great, you know? Yeah. But that's just, it's again, an attest to the band and like the ability for those people, like everybody to work really, really cohesively, both the MD and, everybody just go, hey, we got it.
And it just makes me think of like, you've created a safe space, because those moments when you step into sort of something unknown, like it is a little bit scary and you're like, how is this going to go?
Yeah.
But if the team knows that it's about just going for it together and not, hey, we're going to debrief this afterwards, and if you didn't hit all the notes exactly right, like you're going to hear about it. Like that's not the tenor that you're creating there.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. And I have to remind my team of it pretty often, because I'm grateful for them. Like they want the tone to be right. They want the patch to be right. You said Rob's name. He's a quad cortex guy. So like everything is stacked in order, and you're like, hey dude, if I call for something, it is literally just about playing to that moment.
Yeah.
Tap your delay live. Like, I don't care if the drive settings are right, because no one else does either.
Yeah.
They really, really don't. If you're, someone in the congregation just experiencing this moment, they just, they want to follow what the Holy Spirit's doing in that moment. And it's not about, was the piano patch exactly what the record is on that song?
Yeah.
And I think there's freedom in that, It's a John Foreman quote. He's like, if all you find yourself craving is comfort, like you're past your prime, And I think we take so much comfort in like our plans and like our patches. Like I spent 15 minutes with Kaleb on my acoustic the other day. I'm like, I have this pick. What about this pick? Like I can geek out on that stuff. And he's like, no, go back to how it was. We didn't change anything.
Yeah, we didn't change anything.
But I think there's also like an excitement that comes from just chasing those moments down.
Yeah.
And I kind of live for them. I don't ever want anyone to feel like I'm a stallion, like just trying to stir things up for that case.
Yeah.
But when it goes unplanned, man, just trust your instincts.
Yes.
And if you're not ready for it, then that reveals, well, you need to do more work during the week, man. So you are ready,
Yeah.
But
and you guys have, and you've mentioned it a couple times, but I've been writing. And you guys just recorded a record. I was very bummed to not be a part of it, but it was the right thing for me and my family at the time to show up for my kid and her birthday. But
you made the right choice.
I know I did.
We would have loved to have you there,
but I'm there on Instagram.
Family is so important, man.
Yeah. but you guys just recorded a full album. The last one and really, when I met you for the first time was the EP that came out in 21.
21, yeah.
How was that process of like writing? Because you guys introduced some other like people in that process to kind of write with, and I would say also introduce some of your younger team members to what some pros do throughout that writing, process and some of those sessions you guys went through.
Yeah. So we released an EP in 2021. We did that because we were at a staff retreat. We do a couple staff events throughout the year where everybody comes together. We have a school at our church as well. So all of the school staff is there. Talk about culture. Like that's a huge priority for our team. Like even the school, like that's a ministry, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a super fun event. We get like really crazy and really weird. But we were in the green room at the spring event that year in 21. And Pastor Jared was like, hey, like, I feel like there's like a worship vibe. Like what if we did like an EP? And I looked at him in that moment and said, if I can do it with Brent and Miles, I'll do it. Because Brent and I are great friends, and he's an awesome producer. And Jared was like, yeah, let's do it. And then 10 minutes later, he's out on stage, like at this staff event. And he's like, we're doing an EP this fall. I'm like sweating through my shirt. I'm like, okay, it's real.
Oh my gosh.
So we did it. We did some writing that summer. I went and did some writing with Brenton. He's a great songwriter as well. Great guy. Go follow him. He's awesome. He'll make your mix better. He'll make your songs better.
He's so
like,
good.
He's
I
a
hate
beast.
how good he is because it's just everything he touches. I'm like, so good.
Brenton, we love you.
We love you,
mostly. So Kaleb ended up mixing that live night, and that's when we met.
Yeah.
Because Brenton was producing the project, and I was like, hey, who could we have mix the night?
Yeah.
Because we also work with another great audio engineer, Ron Cook, and he engineered that night behind the scenes doing the capture. So we met, and we turned that project really, really fast. Like really fast. We recorded in August. We recorded in September, and we released in October.
Yeah.
So I don't suggest doing that to anyone. Go on record. Don't do that. But Brenton made it happen. It was amazing.
He did make it happen.
So from there, we started to see the strength that the original songs brought to our house.
Yeah.
Not just because they were original. There can be kind of that parenting pride. Like every art project my son brings home, I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
My sons, I should say. But we really started to see like a different moment come from those songs because they were written for the house, in the house. And so as we were continuing to write, that was the thing we were chasing down. What's God doing in our church? Where are the songs, honestly, that are unique to City First that I'm not finding from the other artists that I draw from?
Yeah.
There's so much great music out there. But as being a part of the different churches you're a part of, sometimes there's just like a song that doesn't quite hit the vocabulary of the house or the heart of the house, whatever. So we continued to write. We released a couple singles like in that gap season.
That's right.
Yep. Which was great. Just trying to keep the pulse there. And then last summer we did a writing camp just with our team. And then we brought in Brenton as well because he's our producer. There's this really cool tool out there called the Songwriting Personality Test. It's by Chrissy Nordoff.
Okay.
She's amazing. She has a book called Writing Worship. If you want to write songs for your church, go buy that book. You can get it on Amazon. You can get the audiobook. She is a staff writer for Integrity Music.
Okay.
And then she also has a ton of resources that she offers through Writing Worship Co.
Got it.
I'm not endorsed by her. I've never done any of her writing camps or anything, but truthfully, like that book unlocked the tools that our team needed to understand the songwriting process, why you think differently about songs than I do, and the beauty of co-writing, because all the songs were co-written that we've done.
That's awesome.
So I had everyone take that test, and then we split off into 3 writing rooms with the different skills represented.
Okay.
And at that point, that was last June, we had a few songs that we had written that we were sitting on that we hadn't produced yet or demoed yet. And then a lot of songs came out of that, that camp. So we continued to refine those. Some of the stronger ones we started to introduce at church. starting to test them. We have this song called My Confidence. We just did it yesterday. That song literally has been played for our church at 4 different BPMs, at 4 different roadmaps, 4 different dynamic journeys, like wildly different. Yeah. And Kaleb finally heard, the final product, and he's like, "Oh, this one's it."
Yes.
He was pumped on it. So we're doing this, with a team of volunteers. So I'm at the office with my MD, and we're working on the songs. And you can move the ball, forward so far. And Brenton, he had the idea. He was like, "Hey, I think we should take all the songs that we're really, really believing in, and we should do a week of pre-production."
Yeah.
So we assembled a team to do that. Brought in a drummer named Steve Hermantis, the Chicagoland people. Steve, love you, Steve, and your mohawk. Can't wait to eat the tacos, man. But and then we were able to bring in 2 players from Nashville, Corey Pierce and Dan Elber. Awesome guys. They play with artists in Nashville. They're a part of the Belonging Co.
Yeah.
And we did basically 3 days of pre-production where we fully arranged 10 songs across 3 days. And we had demos of all the songs. But with those guys, we really stripped everything back to just the studs.
Yeah.
And said, should that wall be there? How long should this hallway be? And really allowed them to speak into the process, which was so cool for the team members at City First to see their thought process, to observe the reps of like, no, let's take another pass at this, try that with the kick. Or, what if the melody did this? So that was a really, really awesome learning experience and just propelled the songs to a level that our team could have gotten to over a much longer time frame.
Yeah.
And not even that they would be the same. They wouldn't be the same.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever you go into a pre-pro scenario, you're assembling a skill set and the instincts of like that team. And working with Brenton, he handpicked the right guys. And so
cool.
So grateful for their contribution to the project, and the arrangements that came out of it really, really were next level. And it was, largely in part due to those guys. I mean, they're just great.
Yeah.
So we then captured a live record on March 6th. We shared all the demos with our church.
That's right. Yeah.
Hey, DM us if you want the demos. It's a Dropbox link. Take and listen to the songs. Because we didn't have a chance to reintroduce all the new arrangements to the church before the capture.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing I would say. Some of our timelines were, chosen for different reasons. But we did everything we could to have the songs in front of everyone. And then, on a first Wednesday, so it was a Wednesday night, March 6th, we captured 9 songs is what we ended up capturing. And so first single will be out in June.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a few singles leading up to the full release in October.
It's awesome, man.
So we're really pumped. And the church knows about 2/3 of the songs. And then the other ones, they heard that night and getting a lot of texts. Hey, can I get that demo? And you're like, it's coming, I promise. But we're really excited and really believing that this next wave of songs, we've already seen the originals, play a similar role in the weekend experience.
Yeah.
And we do it because we feel like music is a missional tool. It's a universal language.
It's universal, man.
Yeah, it's a way for people to carry part of their Sunday experience with them throughout the whole week.
Yeah.
Whether in their prayer time or just on their drive to work, or to share as a tool with a friend who's going through, a hard time. You're going, I don't necessarily know yet what the Bible would say about this, but this song really encouraged me. And, it talks about God's character or whatever it is. So, really full of faith. And I'm excited to see what happens with this next project.
I'm too, man. I'm very much looking forward to that release. And luckily you're not, releasing in April, a month after the record is released. So
give ourselves some more time.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Nice.
But dude, that's awesome, man. I'm thankful for you and I'm thankful for everything that you do at the church. I'm proud to be able to go there and show up and, lead with you and the band and, do everything that we do all the time, which is so fun.
Well, it's mutual. We love having you on the team, and your mix always crushes. And so
thanks, man.
Yeah. And just grateful for you guys. Amplio's been such an amazing resource.
Yeah.
they didn't ask me to say this, by the way, but just an awesome resource to think out loud with, bounce ideas off of, renovate spaces with, find solutions with. I think that's, one of the unique things about the church I'm a part of is all of our facilities are existing.
Yeah.
So we're always chasing down solutions.
Right. Yeah.
New construction is, as it has its own challenges, but it also has advantages. And so I know a lot of people are in existing spaces that they're going, how could we do this?
Yeah.
And you guys have just been amazing to work with in all those projects. So
Adaptability.
there you go.
Comes back again. It's full. It's like
Boom.
the theme of the whole conversation, man.
That's it, man. That's how we get things done.
That's right.
Dude.
So,
Man. Well, that's awesome. Well, thanks for being with us, man.
Yeah. And people can check out, what is it? City First Worship.
yeah. So at City First Worship,
Yeah.
you can check us out there, City First Church. And then I'm Samuel VDH on Instagram. So
Yeah, buddy.
yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. This
So
was great.
DM him with all of your complex and messy church merger questions, and he will help you.
I promise I will pray for you. I do mean that. And then, you can get through it. That's all I'll say to
There you
anyone
go.
who's going through it. Like, ultimately, the Lord takes care of his church. Like, that's his heart.
Yeah.
And I've seen that live out and be true in my life, and believe that he's going to do that for you too if you're going through a tough time.
Yeah.
So
That's cool, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
sweet. Love y'all.